Ladies and gentlemen, today is November 16th, 2016, and this is the KNKL Show 318, where we learn to be better artists. My name is Kienan Lafferty, and I would like to welcome you to another show. Today we are going to be working on the Made of Metal promo piece, DVD cover, illustration, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be refining composition today. And the votes are in! The votes are in because you guys, I tasked you guys last week to take a look at these. We did a bunch of different thumbnails, and I wanted you guys out there to pick which one we're going to be going forward with. And you guys did. You guys showed up by the hundreds about 100 of you. But that's freaking awesome. I'm so happy. Thank you so much to everyone who participated in the poll on imz.com and voted. And look, A won by just one vote. One vote made the difference. And the reason why this is purple is because I personally voted for E. I wanted it. But I can agree that A was a slightly better choice. So we're going to be refining that today. Be talking to you guys about that stuff. But before we get into that, we need to take a stroll down a very special place, and that is, of course, the lovely lane. So journey with me to KNKL fan art over at tinyurl.com, and you will be prompted with this secret link called See All. Click on it, and you will be dazzled by the amazing sombra art. This amazing sombra art that is muy bien. Thank you so much for las submisiones to el Facebook. That's about the extent of my Spanish for the day. And if you would like to get your stuff featured, then just head on over there, like the page, and you'll be featured on next week's show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into today's tutorial. Okay, so defining and refining, refining thumbnails. Okay, guys, so now that we've gotten the hard stuff out of the way, last week we did this, and if you're curious about going back a week and taking a look at how we got to this point, just click up here on this icon, it'll take you back. But we came up with all these different ideas, right? And these are very, very rough sketches that show flow, they show composition, placements of bodies, where our characters are going to be, and some very important things such as like height ratios, because up until this point, I didn't actually stop to think at how Mika is actually shorter than Mocha. And I wanted to make sure that they had like slightly different heights and different looks, obviously, to them. And that stuff is going to be very important because we're going to be going into refinement. And it's always a good choice, to have a reference sheet for your characters, okay? So, all right. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this. I've stalled long enough. You can tell I'm stalling because I'm a little nervous. But we're going to go ahead and do this. Okay. So we go ahead and we have created a new document, and it is nice and high res because we are going to begin drawing. So let's go ahead and make a new layer called lines. And because this is going to be an anime cover, I specifically wanted it to be sort of like that animated look with like the thin lines and the cell shading and stuff like that. So we're going to be taking a similar approach to this as I do with my comic back when I was actually working on it, right? This is sort of like my new brainchild thing that I'm working on, and I'm loving it, so we're running with that. But in the comic, I usually did things in 3 steps, and that was, the first thing that I did was, I don't like this blue. I'm very particular with my blues. I gotta pick the exact right blue, and I gotta draw on the right layer too. Let's start with that. Okay, there we go. I'm very particular with my blues. So there would be the initial sketch, right? The initial sketch, which gives me the idea, okay? And that, like I said, shows like the positions of the bodies and where your characters are gonna be, and like the motion and all that stuff. And then what we're moving into is the second thing. And this is actually like constructing your bodies with the shapes and really starting to like lay out, not just so much tracing, but sometimes you have to like redefine things, because I feel like this anatomy right here, there's a bit of a tangent that's happening. If we zoom in here, and you can see there's a bit of a tangent that's happening right here with her arm and her face, where you can't really tell if her chin is in front of the arm or if the arm is in front of the face. And for this, I wanted the arm to actually be in front of the face. So that's a good example of how we're going to refine that. So I'm going to draw this little circle in to represent the shoulder, and then we're going to draw the arm outwards. I'm going to make sure that I keep in mind my ellipses, right? Now, what is an ellipse? Well, that's a fancy term for, hey, if I was to subdivide this, cylinder, right, basically, which is her arm, what is the shape of the circles inside of it? These are called ellipses. And notice how as a cylinder turns more towards you, see how the ellipses become more circular? So drawing in the ellipses can help you figure out where the arm is placed. See, the ellipses are facing straight at you right here, my arm, and then turning away, now the ellipses are facing that way. It's almost like a ray gun of sorts, right? So if you're shooting a ray gun over here, right? Here's your magical ray gun. So those are your ellipses. Good way to remember it, by the way. Okay, but that's enough babbling. Let's move on to actually refining this. But this is stuff that's all in my head as I'm going through this. I'm not worrying too much. Sometimes your ellipse can come in handy because sometimes it can be the edge of, say, like a sleeve. And that can be a good reminder of, oh, okay, this is how I want that arm to actually look once I'm done with it. Okay? So moving on to the arm here. I feel like this arm got a slight bit too long. We're kind of working with like Disgaea proportions here where the characters have like super long arms. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And you might notice a really interesting thing. Kienan, why are you not drawing stick figures? Why are you not drawing this shoulder and then connecting it to the other shoulder over here and then drawing a line down here and then here's the hips and then drawing stuff like this? And the reason why is because it doesn't work, okay? Anybody who draws like this, I don't care who you are, it doesn't work, okay? Don't draw stick figures. Do not draw stick figures. It's not good for capturing depth. For depth, you need to be thinking in 3D. And to think in 3D, you need to construct with 3D shapes. And you can't have 3D, you can only do so much 3D with lines, okay? So, and a good tutorial to look at that is up here. You can click right here. It'll take you back a couple weeks to back to basics where we learned about bodies. And I teach you guys about just like simple body shapes that I like to use to create, you know, actual people, right? And this is like a really dumbed down version of it. But yeah, I mean, look at how attractive that is. It's so beautiful. Love it. All right, so let's go ahead and get back to this. So that is what I'm going to be doing. So if you feel a little bit lost, fear not, because you can just go back to that. Okay, so I know that her head is going to be here. I know that her eyes are going to be in this general area. I tend to not get bogged down too much in the faces early on. Sometimes I like to throw in like some general ideas of what this is going to look like, but nothing more complicated than that, right? Sometimes I'll throw the hair in there too, just kind of general lines to represent what's going to be there. But the most important thing that we're doing here is we want to construct the body, okay? So, and the nice thing is that we have a general feel of what was already there, like a general feel of the flow lines that we want to accomplish here. Okay, so I'm kind of going off of that. I'm going off of that the best that I can, but also understanding that there may have to be some refinements, okay? So the biggest thing that I'm seeing here, the problem that I see surfacing here, is that I want to make sure that we're seeing enough of her back. So we need to define where her back is actually going to be. And again, I'm swapping my blue to slightly darker. There we go. Okay, cool. So the other arm is going to be coming down this way, okay? So we know the other arm is going to be down here. And again, very, very simple shape for the hand. And in my mind, I'm kind of drawing this line up and I'm thinking, okay, where is the actual other shoulder? Even though it's behind her head, where is it? And then from there, I want to be able to create the torso. Maybe I should make this on another layer. There we go. Okay. So I'm thinking the shoulder is kind of placed down here, and then the back is basically existing right here. And then basically her neck would be here connecting to her head. Okay, I know that's really confusing, but you have to think about this stuff, okay? Especially when you're doing dynamic angles like this. You have to think about how much of the body is actually being covered, and you have to be comfortable with omitting a lot of details, but including the ones that are very important, okay? And that is things like the waist, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and erase this lightly, just kind of leave it there a little bit. Okay, so we're doing something here called country pasta, and that is basically where you prepare an amazing dish that tastes great. It originated in Italy, where they would prepare this pasta dish, and it had to do with these twisty noodles, right? The twisty noodles. I forget what they're called, but they applied that to their art with their figures, specifically women, and they noticed that it made their figures look more attractive. And they're like, oh, okay, well, this principle where we have a twisting body, right? Because see how the shoulders are twisting like this? And then as we go back here, the hips are twisting even more this way? There's like this corkscrew effect that's happening. And that makes your stuff look a lot better. By the way, the story I made up about country pasta, that's completely made up. Please do not tell that to your art teachers. Do not say that. It's called contrapposto or whatever. But it is, the principle is the same. And that is that turning a torso, like the shoulders being on a different plane than the hips, tends to make your characters look a lot more alive, a lot more dynamic, and heroic. So, you should definitely keep that up. Okay, so we got some nice booty action going on here. We want to make sure that we're getting that other leg in there, okay, because there is 2 legs. Wouldn't you know it? Would you believe it on this character? So the other leg, I imagine, is going to be going back kind of like this. And I had a really fun idea for this. I had a really fun idea for how we were going to go about doing this. And that was that originally where this cat was going to be, I'm thinking about moving him elsewhere, maybe down here, right? I'm thinking about moving the cat maybe right here. And back here is going to be a portal, right? Or it's going to be the opening of a portal. And then back here, we're going to see like a castle or something like that, right? It's going to give a little bit more of the story of the Made of Metal series and like where these characters come from and what they're kind of dealing with. And I kind of want it to be more so in the background, a little bit more subtle. And I'm going to put the cat somewhere else because we cannot lose the cat, okay? Let's get that straight across right now, okay? So right now we have a general, like look at how simple this is, and yet it feels good. Feels really good. And let's go ahead and move on to the second step, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and merge these two layers. I'm going to delete this castle. Or actually, I'll just keep it on a separate layer. There we go. Keep it there. And let's go ahead and begin refining Mika, okay? So as far as this goes, this is the fun part. This is the real fun part because now you really have to start getting in there and asking yourself some important questions. And for this, I think I want to actually have this face is really good for Mika. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this over to the other monitor, my secret monitor, and you guys can watch me basically pull reference from that as we refine Mika's face. Because I'm still trying to figure out exactly how Mika's face works and kind of the rules that go with that. A character sheet would totally be helpful, but not always the most prepared, and sometimes I just like to wing stuff. In fact, that's the way I've been doing it thus far, and it seems to be working. So we're just going to continue with that. So I'm going to go ahead and darken these lines, and let's begin refinement. Okay. Now remember, guys, we're not getting our lines. We're going to be doing some sculpting here, but we're not trying to sculpt it perfectly. We're not trying to sculpt things perfectly because we are eventually going to be going over this all over again. So really what we want here is to capture our emotions. Okay, we want to capture our emotions. So I really like what we had here before. And notice how I put these guidelines in, right? Because I know just from experience that these guidelines, like this is sort of like the circle, and this is the halfway point of the circle. That's that line in the middle. Now I know for a fact that my character's eyes most of the time revolve around that area. And for Mika's specifically, actually Mika's are a little bit lower. So, but that's when her eyes are a little bit closed. I mean, I'm kind of drawing that line. I'm drawing that in my head, right? And then kind of dividing that circle. Because there's the circle and the chin shape, right? And then dividing the circle. Now, her eyes are definitely below that, but we need to keep in mind that her eyes are also open here. They're also open. So, I want to make sure we keep that in mind. Okay, now I'm figuring this stuff as I go because I want you guys to see the struggle. I want you guys to see the struggle as I do this. But that's okay. Me and my anime hair, right? That's the other thing. Gotta make sure you got your anime hair going. And me and my anime hair will create this anime piece. So let's continue. Okay, so this is gonna be pretty dang easy from this point on. So, yeah, or at least it should be. At least it should be. So I actually really like the mouth placement of this older sketch, and I kind of want to do my best to kind of mimic that. So in order for me to move the eyes upwards like that, I'm going to have to tilt the head up. So our center point is now going to be up like this. Okay, it's going to be up like this. This is the circle. This is the chin shape down here. And so our eyes can actually fit more properly right here. I'm going to shrink them down just a little bit. There we go. There we go. I like that. And pardon me if I do get a little silent. This is one of the reasons why I try not to do too many refinement things. Because during this point when I'm refining my sketches, I'm usually like in what you would call the zone, right? I am in the zone and I'm like trusting my feelings completely with how I feel the piece should look, right? And it's very hard to explain that as I'm going about doing it. But, because you guys are awesome, you guys deserve to see everything. You guys deserve to see everything. I think I can kind of talk about like general things, but in order for me to describe what I'm actually doing, it's actually very hard to do. So the best thing that I can do is continue to flap my gums whilst I feel the force of the artist. And then you guys can just watch how I go about actually doing this. And then when I'm done, I will do my best to explain what just happened. Explain to me what just happened. Okay, so the basic thing that you can see here is that I'm adding and subtracting. I'm adding some construction lines and I'm subtracting and I'm sculpting things into place. Now this is personally the way that I like to do it, just because I've gotten used to it for so long. I've done it this way for so long. Now immediately I can start to see a couple issues are arising, and that is that I feel like Mika's head is a little bit too big. I mean, I know her head is supposed to be big, but it is way too big here. So luckily we have the amazing tool called the Lasso Tool. We're going to lasso that head. We're going to shrink that sucker down a little bit. Shrink it down a notch. It's good. Good, good, good. Love it. Love it. And let's go ahead and put in those pigtails. Love it. Oh, cool. Yeah, that looks great. That looks great. Awesome. Loving that. Loving that. Okay, cool. So her headpiece is looking good too. Let's go ahead and get in on that face a little bit more. I'll make sure we got these eyelashes looking good. I want her eyes to be a little bit bigger. And I think maybe her eyebrow should change a little bit here. Maybe it's more like a scared eyebrow, where it's pointing more upwards. Yeah, that could work. Yeah, I'm liking that. Good, very good. I hope you guys are learning something. Hope you guys are learning a thing or two about how we like to refine stuff. Yeah, I'm liking that a lot. Looks great. Now, notice like the shapes. I know I tell you guys this all the time, but I really feel like it bears repeating because a lot of people like to draw their anime eyes like this. Like they'll draw one shape and they're like, oh, okay, I really like that. And then they want to go to the other side and like replicate that, right? They want to try to like mirror it, right? But that's not always the proper way to do it. You want to almost think about it as like replicating this shape. So you want to see how like if I was to draw this eye again, see how it kind of like replicates that shape over, except you just kind of erase this part. That's more so what I'm thinking about when I'm drawing anime eyes from this perspective. Tends to make them look a lot better in terms of just like being in perspective and being in actual time and space. So yeah, this actually looks really good. So I like this face because I feel like it fits the same proportions as Mika. Different expression here. But yeah, I think it still captures that same cuteness that Mika has. So, that is a winner. That's what you call a winner. Not a wiener, a winner. So let's go ahead and continue with the dress. Now, Mika's dress, I kind of have a reference for. Shoot, I have it somewhere, but I totally forget where it was. So we're just going to kind of make it up a little bit. Maid dresses are simple enough to remember. Now here's a really important thing for the hips on the girl. So do you see how I created this line right here? You see how I created this line and how the leg branches out from it, right? Obviously you don't want to draw the line down too far, but you want to show the rounding of those hips. Show the rounding of those hips. And that is accomplished by drawing that line right there, okay? Now, for the actual dress, here's the biggest thing that we need to consider. Okay, so we have this sash that wraps around right here, wraps around her waist. And then from there, I still need to figure out whether or not I'm going to put a bow on it. Probably not. Yeah, probably not. But the important thing is off of that sash is where all of your pinch points are. That's where all of the folds of the dress are going to be coming off of. So it's easy to just draw the lines out from that. And now we can draw the dress in. Cool. Awesome, no? Very good, very good. Now I'm going to erase the body underneath a little bit, but not too much because I want to have that reference for as I go, in case I want to go back and like try it again. Okay? So, but in general, drawing in the pleats of that dress. Go ahead and show the folds. That looks good. It looks very good. And I always do this, like sometimes I tell myself not to do this, but I always like to shade stuff in early on. In this case, I think it's fine because we are we're going to be doing new line art over this anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. Now, as far as Mika's dress goes, sometimes I think about the latest drawings that I did here that I really liked. I'm looking over at these ones here. I really like just the general shape of this dress over here on the right because, I mean, it's really rough, but I see it as she has sleeves that come to her wrists. And so I kind of want to go for that. This one actually looks really nice too. I like the general shapes of this. Very, very rough stuff, but I'm just kind of piecing that over, just so you guys know. That's what's on the other monitor, and that's what I'm piecing over. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's move those. Let us move those sleeves all the way down. Just going to go ahead and shade that in. In general. Very good. Okay, so another thing that I'm starting to see here, I'm starting to feel like this waist is a little bit too far out now. I feel like her butt is way too far out there. So let's go ahead and grab those legs and move them in a little bit. However, I like the clarity. Okay, so here's a good example, guys. Stuff you need to watch out for. So I'm going to move this piece closer. But do you see how we're going to run into a tangent right here if I leave it right here? Look at this. This area right here. This is what we call a tangent. I should use a different color to heighten the point. This right here is bad. This is a tangent and what you need to watch out for, okay? Tangents are things or lines that come together that are unclear with their depth, right? Because the hair piece is touching the leg at a perfect angle. We can't, it confuses the reader or confuses the viewer as to which is in front, which is behind. So a good way to fix that is make sure that you move your shapes, either give them room to breathe, right? By saying, okay, let's shorten this piece of hair and have the leg like that, which could be good. Or the other possible solution is to move the hair in front of the leg. Move the hair in front of the leg so it's clearly now the front piece. Now, which one do I like more? Okay, I actually like the one where they had room to breathe. Well, gotta make the decision quick. So, let's go ahead and do this. No! I liked it better the other way. All right, cool. There you go. So that's how you do it. Cool. So this is looking awesome. I'm liking this so far. Now, another thing that I really like to do is you don't always have to draw lines. Just because you're sculpting and refining stuff doesn't mean you always have to draw lines. Let's say that I wanted a white line or a white kind of petticoat thing to be on the edge of her dress, right? I can accomplish that by actually erasing rather than drawing. So keep that in mind too. As you're sculpting your lines, as you're sculpting your piece, you can always add additional details in by erasing. Let's say that I wanted like a little thread or like a trim to be like right here, you know? And that kind of stuff is always good to keep in mind. All right. Now, I don't know exactly what I want to do with this shoulder. I like the way it looks right now. I actually think I might end up putting in like a little, like a frill, like a white frilly thing that comes off of this piece. So I'll just kind of sketch in just the value. Notice how I'm not going in there and worrying about like, okay, let's like really get in there and like define that. Not necessarily right now. Eventually you want to get to that. Eventually you want to get to the point where it's like, okay, let's actually get in there and draw the frill. But at first you just want to throw the value in there. See if you actually like it there. See if you like that, the value being there and if it helps to clarify your piece or if it's taken away from it. All right, let's go ahead and refine the edge of her face a little bit. Let's refine the edge of Mika's face. Always a good thing to do. Yeah, this looks great. This looks great. I am loving this. I'm loving this, like Lucio says. And I'm playing way too much Overwatch. I need to... Actually, I haven't been playing enough Overwatch lately. I retract that statement. I've been playing too much Dark Souls lately. And Demon Souls. I recently just watched an awesome video where this guy talked about how Bloodborne was an amazing... Actually, I subbed to him, or not subbed to him, I'm actually pledging to him on Patreon. The guy's name is H-Bomb, and he created this awesome... not tutorial, what's the word? Documentary of sorts about Bloodborne and why it's genius. And the reason why he says it's genius is because the game is so well put together that it makes people want to enjoy the other games from Software on a different level. And it's like, oh man, that's totally what happened. And that's why I'm playing Demon's Souls right now, because of Bloodborne. I'm playing that because of how much fun Bloodborne was. And if any of you have not played Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3, I highly recommend you guys go out there, try it out for yourselves. A little bit of a learning curve that you'll have to get past, but I think you guys will truly enjoy it. Truly love that series. In fact, I really want to do a fan art of Bloodborne and Demon's Souls and Dark Souls and all that stuff in the coming months, hopefully. And actually, well, that could be a very real thing, because lately I've been having a great time just doing more art in general. For those of you who are following my Instagram, and if you're not, then the link is in the description. Go check that out, because I've been releasing a bunch of cool stuff. And speaking of Instagram, for those of you who saw the Widowmaker piece that I did a few days ago, I will be releasing that PSD on Patreon today. So it'll be a bonus. Not only will you be getting this cute picture of Mika, but you'll also be getting that Widowmaker piece as well for you guys to take a look at. All right, guys, so that's basically how I go about refining things. Now you can see we still have a long way to go, but we have definitely taken a step up from this point, right? Now, a couple things that I'm also noticing here is that there's a little bit more motion. Now, this is one of the things that you really want to watch out for. And this is probably the last thing that we'll end on today, is that I feel like there was a little bit more motion in this. And we're losing it as we refine it. Now, that is a common thing, and actually probably one of the biggest things, the biggest enemy to your artwork is always going to be, as you refine things, not only in this stage, but as you go into color and overpainting and lighting and all that stuff, it will continue to stiffen up. So it's very important that you always look back at your original drawings. Always look back at these original sketches, because there's motion, there's emotion, and there's things that you can't lose. Okay? So with that in mind, let's go ahead and make a couple changes to this. And here's the awesome tool, right? Control J. Control J will duplicate your lines and allow you to make any changes that you want. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, where am I seeing the most changes? Where are most of the changes happening? I'm looking at this, and I feel like many of the changes are actually happening. I think it's because we changed the silhouette, first of all, of her dress. Right? So maybe the dress, instead of kind of sticking out that far, maybe it more needs to hug the body right here. It needs to hug this area and kind of go back in this sort of fashion. So let's try that first. Maybe the dress can kind of, because I wanted a lot of motion in this dress. Let's see if I actually have it here. Yeah, see, I didn't really draw a dress here. So it poses a new challenge for us. A new challenger approaches. But that is okay, because we can handle that. We can handle that just fine. Now, another thing that I feel changed, and this is more of a stylistic difference, but I feel like the eyes need to be a little bit wider. They need to be more open, because I really liked how they looked previously. I really like how they look in this piece, but it's not the same style. This style looks like Crash Bandicoot or something, and that's not exactly what we're going for. But the emotion is what we're going for, and that's what you guys need to understand. So the eyes are super open. So let's go ahead and see if we can drop a little bit more of that flavor into our piece. So there's a couple ways that we can accomplish that. One is you want to make sure that the eyes are open. Like, they don't have to be bigger. But they do need to be rounder. Okay? So let's go ahead and open the eyes up even more. And let's try making the pupils even smaller. I think that's a little bit closer to what we had. Yeah, because see, these pupils are a little bit larger. They look a little bit more cute. These are shorter or smaller. See? Difference from there to there. Big difference, guys. Big difference. Remember how I told you 90% of it is in the eyes? Oh, some of you doubted me, but I was right. Okay, so if you're feeling that your expression is lacking, always check the eyes first. Check the eyes first. You might be surprised with what you find. Let's see. Now, also the eyebrow. I did change the eyebrows, but I don't know if I don't know. That one's okay too. I like both of them, but I think this one's cuter. I like that. This is probably more what Mika would. That's probably more Mika's expression if she was being catapulted through a portal there. Speaking of catapults, we're going to be doing question catapult in just a moment. Just a moment. In fact, now might be a good time to do it because I want to keep refining this as I'm answering a question. So let's go ahead and launch those question catapults. And I always love the question catapult because it gives me time to stretch. Gives me time to just like when the camera's off, like, right? It's like, stretching on my chest, right? Because I was actually like doing push-ups. Dude, I did 20 push-ups yesterday. 20! And I woke up today and my chest is like really sore. I used to work out once a week, but then I like stopped for like 3 months. And now I'm finally getting back into it. So yeah, my chest is like really sore. So it's like stretching it. Okay, so the question is coming in from the KNKL IMSI. And if you'd like to submit your own questions, just head on over there. The site went public, so anybody can join now. All right, Phil Draw asks, death by reference. Okay, great question coming in. I knew immediately what this question was going to be even before I read it. Okay, so Phil Draw is asking, I'm not able to invent poses when I draw, at least not in the way that looks good. I felt crippled by the way I use reference. For example, I'll get an idea for a scene, Google search for that pose close to what I want, end up creating composition way too close to the original reference image. Okay, this is great. This is totally fine. It gets even more complicated when light gets involved because you want to do the same lighting that's in the reference. Okay, cool. Awesome. That is awesome. Phil Draw. Great question. He's asking, KNKL, how do you make use of reference? I know you need to study it before you can invent compositions on your own, but using a biking metaphor, how do you make the leap from training wheels to riding around on your own? This is a great question, Phil Draw, and I'll be happy to answer it. Okay, so the best thing that I can say is that, yes, you should be going online to find those references for poses and stuff like that. Because, I mean, if you look at this piece, it's like, imagine that I wanted to find a pose like this. Where the heck could I find a pose of a person, like, with their arm in front and then their legs, like, sticking back like this? You know, it's going to be hard to find. By the way, I hope you really like me. They're my lucky pajama pants, okay? I use them every time I do this. Every time I do the show. Okay, but imagine you tried to find that. It's going to be really hard. Okay, so there's a couple things that you can do to make that transition. First off is make use of this thing right here. If you have a webcam or a phone, I know you have a phone. So have your friend take some pictures of you, especially when you're doing dynamic poses. And keep in mind that specifically you don't want to, okay, I'm about to go into a whole nother principle that might blow your mind. But have him take the picture far away and zoom in is what I'm trying to say. Because if you have him take the picture of you close up, see how like the distortion of the foreshortening is going to totally like throw off your picture. Like if you take the picture far away, right, the relationships, you can now more clearly see what's happening with the body. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so take pictures far away, have him zoom in on it so that way it doesn't mess up the thing and that way your elbow isn't in the freaking camera. And use that. I don't even know if I had to go into that whole principle, but yeah. That's a good way to transition from one reference to another, right? Your own references, so that way people aren't looking at this and be like, hey, isn't that the same reference from Evangelion? Isn't this anime DVD cover? Didn't they use this in that other anime about the maids from medieval times? Hey, Kienan, you're ripping off those compositions. You're ripping it off, right? You don't want people to call you out on that stuff. You don't want to be like Kronprinz and have people call you out on your art. Even though it actually isn't really that big of a deal. Even if you use the same reference. It's like people are doing that stuff every day. It's like, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, so, but the biggest transition is going to happen when you watch the video up here about constructing bodies and learning about the shapes that construct bodies and then being able to manipulate those in 3D space. That's when you are going to make that transition. And then learning about lighting, all right? And the first step is, yes, you want to study photos. You want to study how does light interact, because with me, my lighting is always the same. And this is a great segue into something else that I wanted to talk about. Oh, let's go ahead and pull up this widow sketch. Yay! Okay, cool. So take a look at this widow sketch. And this is the PSD that's going to be available on Patreon at the end of the show. So take a look here. Do you notice something interesting about this sketch? Well, the lighting is from the front, right? The lighting is frontal right on the character. So it's really easy for me to pick out, hey, what parts of this character are going to be lit? Well, that's easy. It's all the planes that are facing directly at me. But imagine that I wanted to move that light to somewhere else. That is where I actually struggle the most. And I have to look at reference. And I'm still studying how light interacts with, or how to draw a face or a form from a different angle, or from a different angle light hitting it, okay? But then eventually, once I get that in my mind, I will remember that. And I'll be like, okay, now I know how the light interacts with that face from that angle. I know the planes of the face. and I can basically do that better now. But I think the transition, basically long story short, the transition happens when you figure out the planes, when you figure out the actual construction of the body and the face, and then you can then say, okay, the light is coming from this angle, it's going to be affecting here, 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 and here, and then that is when you're going to make that transition. So don't worry too much about feeling like you're crippled by the use of reference, but I will say that the next step for you is definitely going to be learning how to construct your bodies in the similar way that we did here, learning what shapes make those up, learning what planes make up the face, and you will have yourself a good time with that. All righty, ladies and gentlemen, I know I said I was going to refine as I was doing this, but I lied. So let's go ahead and do a little bit more, and then we're going to end. Hope you guys don't mind a bit of a longer daily today. I know some of you complain. Some of you complain when it's a longer one. Some of you complain when you're a shorter one. And you know what? I've just come to the conclusion that, you know what? You guys just can't be satisfied. You guys are just spoiled little children. You cannot be satisfied. So I just decided I'm going to do whatever the heck I want. I'm going to do whatever the heck I want with my show because it's mine. And if you don't like it, then you can make your own show. And I encourage you to, because we need more people teaching their awesome techniques online. We need more people teaching it. You can't just learn from me. You can't just learn from Ross Draws. You can't just learn from, who else? Jazza, Draw with Jazza. You can't learn from all those people. You got to learn from multiple people. You got to learn from hundreds of people. You got to learn from people in real life. You got to learn from people on the internet. And yeah, definitely. Yeah, so make your own things. Make your own things. That's what I did 5 years ago, and I'm still doing it. Still doing it. I haven't shut up. It's been 5 years, and I still haven't shut up. Can you believe it? Many people have told me to, but I still haven't. So that's me going into a little bit of thoughtful there. Refining this hand, even though I should not be at this point, because refining hands on air is one of the things I am most terrible at. Okay, but the point is that this is looking quite good. I'm very happy with this. Very, very happy with this. And I think we are going to go ahead and end this pretty soon. Yeah, I'm liking this. We're off to a good start. Feeling the motion in this. I'm liking this a lot more. Also, I'm going to show you another thing that I like to do. Hey, look at this. I'm going to totally cheat right here. I am going to select this entire thing, hit Control-T, right-click it, and then go to warp. Okay? Shh, don't tell anybody that I do this. Okay? I'm actually going to warp my drawing. Okay? This is cheating. This is actual cheating. You can never do this in a sketchbook. Only in Photoshop can you do this. But I'm warping my drawing and trying to find a better line of action. Because remember how I said I want something to be important up here? Maybe I should have her leg, instead of pointing this direction, maybe I should have it kind of coming more this way, right? Pointing more towards our other, not necessarily focal point, but make it look a little bit more like it's coming out of the scenery that's going to be placed back here, right? The castle. The Eichenwald Castle. Okay? All right, I think that's going to do it for now, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to do it for now. Feeling pretty good about that. Still got a lot of refinement to do, but I will be time-lapsing the continuing progress that I do over the next week, and I'll be showing you guys that next week. All right, so before we go, I want to say thank you to my amazing sponsors, Laura Bashir, David Chiariello, and Megan Gwynn, and the Chanceys. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring the show. Thank you to everyone on Patreon who has been sponsoring the show as well. And a special gift for you guys on Patreon. For those of you on Patreon, not only will you be able to get this PSD, right, by clicking up here, take you over to Patreon, you can download all the other PSDs, and as a bonus just for watching this far, you guys can also download the Widow PSD. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and end today's show. Thank you guys so much for joining me on YouTube. Thumbs up if you like, thumbs down if you don't. My name is Kienan Lafferty. I'll see you guys next week. And until then, you guys take care. See ya.